What's up guys, it's Anders and today I'm going over 5 different tips you can use to improve your EQ. Okay, so number 1, use your frequency analyzer. Have a look at what's going on with that signal. Absolutely, trust your ears, mix with your ears. If it sounds good, it is good. But unless you're in the perfect room with gear that you know inside and out, have a look at that frequency analyzer. See what's going on. See if there is sort of an odd peak popping up or some extra low end that you weren't aware was there. Let me show you what I mean and how that can help you in a mix. Alright, so here's an example of having a look at your frequency analysis and look at the ridiculous EQ I've done, but it absolutely works and that's what's cool about it. People would tell you to never boost like that, but it gets the sound I'm after, and I'm also rolling off the low end despite the fact this is a really deep sub, right? So the reason I say about looking at the analysis, there's loads of low end in this sub loop that didn't need to be there. We can see the fundamentals, and I'm taking out what didn't need to be there, this wobbling area here, and I'm in a decent set of headphones. If you are too, I solo this. There's literally nothing there. It's so sub that you're just not going to detect it no matter how high up you ramp your headphones. So it's just taking up headroom without any cause or reason really. As well, in terms of the high end, there's loads of this sort of noise and spikes going on. I actually liked pumping that right up in the mix. So if we were to select these points, for example, and turn them off, the difference it makes in the audio. And look, there's all that high end is there. It's just below the 30 marker, right? Another thing, looking at the analysis, we can see these spikes. They weren't causing a problem in the mix, but it's something that I can see but you can't necessarily hear, right? And you might need to fix those things. If these spikes were happening in the mid-range, I'd absolutely need to look at correcting those out. Number 2, don't always high pass everything. It's common at the minute for people to say high pass absolutely everything apart from your sub bass. Seriously, you don't need to high pass everything. Again, move back to number 1. Look, if there's excessive low end and something going on, absolutely high pass that. And if you are going to high pass things, look at the audio, listen to the audio, be aware of what's going on with it before you high pass everything. When you get to a mix and you play it against your reference and yours sounds really thin with everything missing, that's because you've high passed everything and you've pushed it a little bit too far and you start to get brittle. A lot of the low end, the body, the feeling comes in that lower mid-range and the low end. It's what gives it the weight and feeling. So don't high pass everything. Do it intelligently. Look to see if you need to high pass it. Let me show you what I mean. Alright, so here's where I've exclaimed that you don't need to high pass absolutely everything. And I just want to give you an example here. We're going to go from a bit of a heavy drum and bass track into the breakdown section here. We're looking at these green faders around here, which look, literally none of them have got an EQ on.
Hard to remember. We live in a special kind of space. It's not a game.
Okay, so these develop and build up over time, and notice I've not high passed everything. There's no need for it. I've got some compression going on this one here. I've got the virtual tape machine, but nothing's high passed, and it all builds up over time like this.
Hard to remember. We live in a special kind of space. It's not a game. Into the dark, into the white, and light triangles. These patterns represent dark triangles, radial spaces, sophisticated apparatus, powerful, blind musicians.
And I'm sure you can feel where that's going. But my point being, the sounds themselves can do their own thing. Only need to high pass if you've got a mix conflict or if there's something going on with the sound that could adversely affect what's going on. So number 3 is a technique for finding those areas that you actually do want to EQ. And I just call it the boost and sweep. Really simple. You want to get kind of a narrow-ish but not overly narrow that it sounds unnatural boost on your EQ and just gradually sweep it. I will tend to go in the area of the sound that I'm mainly looking to adjust and play with, but you can sweep across the whole bandwidth. Start high and bring it down low slowly. You'll find that your ear will either latch onto bits and goes, oh, that sounds quite nice. that's an area you might want to give a little boost or cut the other areas around it so it stands out a bit more. Equally, your ears will probably pick up on resonances and other bits that aren't so pleasant, and that's really good to learn how to cut those out. Let me show you what I mean. Boost and sweep is just a really nice way for you to be able to find frequency areas that sound nice or sound negative. So I'm just going to take the ride on the breakdown. We'll solo that. Let's grab an EQ. Beautiful. It is blank. So let's just listen to this ride. Notice, not high passed. And let's just have a listen to this. So it's going to be a little something like this. We might narrow that cue off just a little bit. And we just want it to be enough that our ear catches that there's been a sudden boost. What we're going to do is we're going to move it gradually and maybe not so loud, but that was a good example. And I just want to listen. I want to find the bits that really stand out and that are nice and make that sound what it is, and anything that's maybe negative and not so good. There was something already. Did you hear that kind of shaker that was coming through? So this is from Logic's Drummer, which is recorded live originally. A little bit of a shaker came through just around this area here. Now, how nice is that? So little things like that we can just find and make stand out. As we sweep down, we might find some areas we dislike. So we're starting to get some boxiness here. There's definitely like a boxy area here. There it is. So we could now just narrow that off. And we could just take that away. It wasn't causing a problem, but we, say we end up bringing the level of this up or we compress it, it's going to start causing a problem down the line. So we've now found that and just taken it away with a nice narrow cut there. And that is just the boost and sweep method for finding different bits of sound that you maybe want to lift or cut away. Number 4, cut narrow, boost wide. Now, some EQs do this for you. It's called proportional cue. You'll notice if you use Logic, when you boost, you get like this wide arc, right? And when you cut something, it goes really narrow down. That's proportional cue. And the reason it does that is when we boost on an EQ, wide and sort of sweeping, if you will, sounds a lot more natural and gives us a much better result. Whereas we can get away with much narrower cuts when we take something away. Also, we only really want to take away audio that isn't great or is like a resonance issue and just boosh, cut that away, right? You can still do cuts that are nice and sweeping and just carve out areas. If you do that with a boost and you give it a really narrow spike, it tends to sound unnatural, even a little bit harsh. There are exceptions to the rule. Getting some really punchy, distorted guitar tones and mixing them together with really sharp boosts can work, but as a general rule, cut narrow, boost broad. Let me show you it in practice. All right, so this kind of follows on from the last tip, which was the boost and sweep. We want to boost wide, but cut narrow. And we've got something called like proportional cue, or it's called cue couple here on Logic's EQ. And if we select, let's say the nice green one here, notice if we boost, it keeps it kind of wide until we get to a certain point and it really starts to narrow out. But if we cut, it goes a lot narrower as well. If we take off that cue couple, always going to stay that big wide thing, right? And the reason this is, when we cut, we can get away with much more of a narrow one. So we took this harmonic out here, didn't we? Let's have a listen to the high end. We'll have a really like narrow cue cutting away at say 5k, and then I'll bring it upwards and see the difference. So we don't really notice that narrow cut, right? It's actually taking away quite a nice bit of a harshness. That would be a good EQ. If we were to boost it like that, however, it's going to sound really sharp and really unnatural. This is just the way our ears tend to hear things. So put the cue couple back on. If we were to sort of flatten it out a little bit and make it wider, it brings lots of other sounds up with it and it makes it more acceptable. Notice as well that we could cut a lot deeper without it really overly affecting the sound, but a boost tends to have to be a lot more subtle. We'd have to do something like this. And this boost wouldn't achieve the same effect for us as our cut. It would take away a lot of what we enjoy about the sound. What we could end up with in the end would be something like this, where we've got a nice wide boost over 5k, but we had a bit of harshness there. We'd have a really narrow cut taking the middle section out. Number 5. Use your different slopes. Most EQs will have a 6, 12 and 24 dB slope. Good example, vocals where you've got a really sort of bassy vocalist but it's not working with the mix. 6 dB slope will gently roll that off and sound really, really natural. Let me show you how that works. And we'll stick with our ride for the very last one as well, using a different slope. So let's activate our low pass here. By default, it's on a 12 dB slope. We can put that off to a nice 6 dB slope. And we're going to bring it back somewhere we probably wouldn't do. That would be quite extreme, to say 2K. And notice how gentle that is. Our sound's probably still going to sound quite nice, but it would have lost its sheen. So it's just dulled it off, but in quite a natural way. It's so gently sloped, we just get the feeling that maybe a door has been closed and the sound's still coming through, but we've just dipped that high end away. If we were to now take that to something like a 24, yeah, we've quite literally lost all of the high end. It's just not there anymore. And we can make use of this in different ways. So if we wanted to really isolate part of a sound, we would use quite steep slopes. But if we wanted to have it so we've isolated the sound and still have it feel quite natural and filled out, we'd use gentler slopes. So make use of your different slopes on different sounds, have a listen to what works best and what's achieving what you need to in the mix. So guys, those were my 5 EQ tips. If you found them helpful, please bash a like on the video. It helps me know what's good and what's helpful for you guys. And if you've got any questions, throw them in the comments down below. If you like this new video format, I would love to know as well. And I will see you guys on the next one.